Hey, everybody, this is Gwen Peterson. I am bringing my good friend and trainer now into the equation, Casey Mitzel. As you guys have followed my journey, I pulled all the extra weight off that I wanted to last year, got down into a healthy body fat percentage because it's not about the scale, it's about the body fat. And I went through transition. You've watched all those videos, and I kind of have gone radio silent because I've just been living life, eating balanced every 3 hours. And a couple of my videos you saw, I was doing yogurt with granola. Love, love, love that, right? Well, here's what's so fun about it is love, 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 love granola, right? So over the last probably, 14, 15 weeks, still been eating every 3 hours, still do a couple fuelings a day, and easily substituting that yogurt and granola a couple times a day. But at the beginning, I knew my little quarter cup of measuring granola was the right caloric intake and all that of where I wanted to be with the balance. But once you're in maintenance, it doesn't have to be that complicated unless you stop paying attention. So I stopped bringing the quarter cup of measuring cup out and scooping spoonfuls in that in. Well, slowly I started noticing that my clothes were getting just a touch tighter because I wasn't eating cupcakes. I wasn't eating a bunch of crap, right? But I noticed my clothes were getting a little bit tighter. So finally, a couple weeks ago, I got on the scale and I was like, how in the world am I up 9 pounds? Well, then I started going to reverse engineer and realized that when you start running the actual numbers of your BMR, and remember, I'm not the exercise queen, so I'm burning no calories except for what my body's normally burning. Every day I was easily 300 or 400 calories above my baseline, right? So when you add that up, because we know 3,500 calories equals 1 pound gained, I was gaining about a pound a week without even realizing it because I was choosing healthy choices, just not tracking the amount. So then, of course, Orange Theory was doing some big promo where you got a month free, and that was in my brain, and I need to exercise, blah, 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 and let that bypass. Because I said to my friend, Michelle, if I sign up with you, you might have to call an ambulance because I literally have not exercised in so long. So then I just decided, you know what, before I jump into not having somebody that is really walking me through, why wouldn't I reach out to Casey? Because Casey is also an Optavia coach with me, owns a gym, has a lot of personal trainers. And I just reached out to him. I'm like, okay, enough is enough. I need you to help me know what exercises to do, really work on that BMR and all of that. And his first step was go get a new body fat scan because I'm not as much worried about the body fat as I am where your muscle mass is, which was never on my radar. So Casey, let me hand it over to you at this point, because that's where I kind of put it all in your hands, because this is step 2 of the journey is, yes, if I kept my calories where I should have, but didn't realize it, I still would have needed to incorporate the exercise and figured out that BMR. And that's where you bring in somebody that's more skilled than you, because that's not my skill set. So Casey, tell me first, what were you laughing when I reached out? And I'm like, oh my heavens. No. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I wasn't laughing at all, because it's exactly what I love to do. I mean, this is exactly like this spot in people's journey is exactly what I love to focus on. This is my expertise. So, not that, because weight loss technically is easy. Weight loss is eating. It's not easy from a mental, emotional standpoint, but it's literally eating fewer calories and working out more. And you're going to find a lot of people who are going to want to argue that. They argue it up and down. A lot of fitness experts and all kinds of stuff will try to make that argument and claim, but there is no scientist alive. There's nobody who's seen the research who can argue it any other way. The law of thermodynamics is what it is. Okay. We've never seen an exception to it. It just doesn't exist. There's a couple of, key factors, like insulin plays a role, obviously. But it plays a role differently than how most people expect it would be. If you were still locked in a cage and only fed a little bit of food, the exact amount of food that you could track, you would still lose weight, right? But given free will and given appetite control issues and all the other things, we tend to just find ourselves eating more than we would expect to, right? And then protein is also important. So protein has a higher factor on that hierarchy of, like a calorie is a calorie, because it has so many building block opportunities that it's required for your body to perform certain things in muscle repair and that kind of thing. So there's a few things that are a little bit more important, but at the end of the day, at the end of a period of time, calories in, calories out becomes the major thing. And what the other studies will support is that people they'll underreport calories by 30%. The heavier the person, oftentimes it will increase to 40 or 50%. Okay. Dietitians have been shown to underreport their calories by 15 to 20% when put under pressure to actually track their stuff. So what that means is we've got we're eating more than we think we are, number one. And then on the other side of the spectrum is that we overestimate how hard we think we're working, or how many calories we think our body needs. So, and that's to the tune of about 40%. So if I'm overestimating my workout, like, oh my gosh, that was the world's hardest workout today, and I'm overestimating it by 30 to 40%, then I've got like a 70% swing, right? And if we're just trying to get to a point where there's a calorie deficit where we can feel comfortable and see body fat reduction happen and possibly increase some strength and some lean body tissue, then we're in a really good spot. Because I think the missing piece is, technically, we just want to feel good. If you don't feel good on any plan, you're going to crash and burn. I can guarantee it. The only thing that can prevent that is your level of why, which is usually directly correlated to some kind of traumatic experience. Those are the ones who are successful even with a horrible plan. Okay, that's disease. You've been diagnosed with a disease. You just went through a divorce. You may have got terminated from a job. There's just, there's a death in the family and it just shook you to your bones. That's the type of, like, people can follow a horrible nutritional plan and suffer through it with that level of like just direct focus, right? Sure. After that, then what, right? So the idea is to make it as comfortable as you possibly can while still achieving the goals that you want to achieve. So feeling miserable burns fewer calories. Okay. And it's called compensation. It's called compensatory behavior. So what that means is that if you feel like you're not eating enough and you're feeling a little bit tired and you're feeling like, oh, I wish I could have that, but I can't, and you're restricted and restricted and restricted, pretty soon you're kind of like dragging your arms and shuffling your feet around the house because you don't want to burn any additional calories, and you feel pretty miserable. So your NEAT activity goes down. So what happens when you have the nutrients that your body needs, or you achieve a fat burn, or you even increase calories a little bit to kind of offset the deficit, is now you get a little pep in your step. You burn a little bit more NEAT activity. You start finding yourself, you're doing dishes and you're dancing at the same time, or you're on the phone and you're pacing back and forth. That doesn't happen when you're in a really super restricted. You're actually like, you probably just, if you just pay attention to what your body's doing, you'll experience yourself doing it. I'll give you a good example. A couple of nights ago, this is when I decided to do like a fast and then have really low calories, just as a reset, just because mentally that's what I like to do sometimes. And my daughter's boyfriend was over, and we had my son was here, and we were playing cornhole. And normally I would be like energetic, funny, dad joke guy, trying to be, like trying to fit in with the kids. And I mean, I know you get it because I know, I know who you are. And, and I'm just like, I'm kind of tired. Like, I don't feel like, I'm not throwing the fist bumps out. I'm not throwing the, the big celebratory, I got a cornhole in. I was kind of like, oh, I went through the motions. So if cornhole could burn, I don't even have any idea, but let's say it burns 50 calories per hour. I was burning 20. You know what I mean? Now, had I, been energetic and enthusiastic about it, I probably could have burned the full amount. But that's somebody's day. Think about your day going that direction, right? And then, so you have to pay attention to how you're feeling with all of that. And then the bottom line is that. So going back to like your Orange Theory thing, and I know that because there's going to be lots of people who have Orange Theories, F45s, or gyms like mine, where with good instruction, people can guide you into a level that's going to be gradual, right? But it can still be a lot, because if you're going from 0, there's no reason to go to 5 days a week.
Right.
Okay. If you're going from 0, you can go to 2 days a week, because when we really take a look at frequency, intensity, time, and type, which is going to be a strategy that you're going to use to make sure that you get the best results when the time is right, and then you build and progress so that you keep getting the best results. If you plateau at 5 days a week for 2 hours, doing a specific class, you've just plateaued at that. And the only thing you can do is now more or harder or heavier or
Right.
whatever the case may be. So you want just the right amount, which I think is what we accomplished. Like you knew where to draw the limits. You went through the Elements 18 HOH workout, right? Which full body workout with control, because if you're just learning how to connect the neurological pathways and the motor unit to the muscle, you go slow and controlled so there's no risk of injury. A risk of injury is going to set you back. If you haven't used those muscles that way, we want to avoid as much soreness as we possibly can. You are still a little bit sore, which is a good indicator that you haven't worked it that way for a while.
Right.
So 2 days a week was perfect. It's like, we had this conversation earlier, but it's like if you go down to Mexico and you've been in Portland, Oregon, which is where I live, and you haven't seen the sun. I mean, it's sunny now because it's summer, but you haven't seen the sun for a while, and you go down there, you're not ready for 8 hours on the beach with no sunblock umbrella. Right. You're going to be hurting. So if you have just the right amount of time and exposure to the sun, just enough of the sunblock with the right SPF, then you're going to get a nice tan. Yep. But you're not going, your goal isn't to just get fried, blistered, and lose all your skin.
Right.
Right.
Right. Which is what I was thinking, going, well, let's join the gym or Orange Theory and have somebody drag me, knowing that she's like, well, you'll just take it slow. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it 15 minutes. And she's like, but you could do the low level. But doing the HOH at those exercises, I was really struggling even at the low impact for 15 minutes, which was I was so glad that I had reached out to you, because I can't even imagine what I would have been like if I had drugged myself to Orange Theory for 3 days in a row with my friend. I don't even know if I would have been moving. I would have pulled something probably.
Well, and that's possible. But I mean, the thing is like, here's what's great. What's great about group classes is you've got the excitement of the group, obviously. You've got the music. You've got the structure. You have everything that's there. But the issue with that is you also have all those things. So what does that mean? That means that you're now working out highly motivated and energized because of the music. You're inspired by all the people who have been coming there for 3 years and who are like, if they can do that, I should be able to do this. And then we get back into our mind of like, well, when I was 18, I did all kinds of stuff like this. And it's like, I mean, I'll do that on the basketball court sometime. And then I'll be like, you know what? I had this move down, but then I dribble and it doesn't look like it anymore. Because the ball doesn't go the direction where my mind tells me it could go, or where it did go when I was 18, it doesn't do it anymore. So, but my mind tells me it should still be possible, so that's, so it can be really inspiring and encouraging, but it also has to be super, super safe. And, that's again, in about 3 weeks, and sometimes you could argue in about, let's say 6 to 8 workouts, you're going to have this motor unit mind connection with the neurons and the muscles. And what's going to happen is you're going to have an immediate strength increase. It's going to blow your mind, because it's going to feel like this is like amazing. And it's the point where I like to call it like fat burn for resistance training, because it's the point where it doesn't feel like a struggle anymore. And you're like, because you're doing you're doing like 10 pounds on the bench press, and it hurts and it burns. And usually set number 3 is the worst, because, set 2 feels amazing. You're like, I'm going to be able to go forever. The mitochondria, the energy system of the muscles, just hasn't been conditioned to go on much past that. But that corrects itself after several weeks of consistency. And then what happens is now all of a sudden you have endurance to go set 3, set 4, or to go longer or to go heavier. And that's a really cool thing. Now, here's the plateau buster here, is that if you're training for comfort, you have to check yourself, right? Because now you're at a point where it no longer hurts, it no longer burns as bad. 10 pounds feels easy. I just did 12. I probably could have done 20. But if your goal is 12 repetitions to fatigue or failure, now you have to go to 12 and a halves, or you have to go to 15s. And this is like, if you look at the 6 ways to boost your workout in the Life book, this is what it's talking about. So whether it's rest periods in between are shortened, or more sets, or more reps, or more weight, that's all how it works to make sure that you avoid a future plateau.
Okay, I love it. So will you walk through real quick what you did nutritionally for me, because again, my brain had no real concept of what you were giving me for exercise, what the nutrition should have looked like and all of that. And then of course, by the way, I got to play around with that extra 9 pounds that I slowly had put on over time. So give them a snapshot of what you put together for me. And as a reminder, this is not a snapshot for anybody watching, because it depends very differently on what their exercise was before, where their current body fat and muscle mass is, all of that. So it's not a one size fits all, right? So explain a little bit of an overview of how you built what I did.
Now you're making me have to pull out my notes.
Oh no. Yes. And by the way, you can, if you're at this point, I believe, Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, reach out to Casey and he can give you you can pay him to put a plan together for you, looking at the body fat and your caloric intake and all of that, once you're at that, really close to that healthy weight.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, and I think you're experiencing the funness of the app that is so incredible, because we can put those macros in there, and believe it or not, all foods have macros, whether you're tracking them or not. It's like, does a tree make a sound when it falls in the woods? Absolutely, it does. So even the 5-in-1 has a macro plan. It's got a footprint, because macros is basically just grams of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins and their caloric value. So that's what it is. So so refresh my memory, Gwen. I know we increased calories more than where you were, first of all.
Right. So meaning like the 5-in-1, if our goal was to just lose weight or lose fat, we would have gone back to the 5-in-1, which that's not the goal here. The goal is to build muscle and get the metabolism going and all of that. So if I remember right, my numbers that I'm eating every day is 1,075 calories, and the macros are like almost like 40, 30, 30, almost. They're real close to that. My Fitness Pal doesn't like me to edit it. It keeps bumping back to that. But yeah, I'm right around 1,100 calories and about 40 protein, 30 carbs, 30 fat-ish.
Yeah, and where that number comes from is we looked at your lean body mass, right, which is going to be your deciding factor for all of that. Because here's the misconception that a lot of people really don't pick up on, is that for a ketogenic plan, if fat burn is essentially like ketosis, you have to be under a certain ceiling for carbohydrates. You have to be under a certain ceiling for protein. Now, for a 6-foot male who probably has 135 pounds of lean body mass or more, they qualify very easily for 4 and 2 right off the bat. And the reason why, and I'm using Optavia terminology here for those people, but in my world, I just deal with macros and calories, because that's essentially what it is. But what a 4, 2, and 1 will do is it'll supply about 135 grams of protein. Now, if you're going off of the less than 1 gram per pound of protein per pound of lean body mass, for most ladies, they're going to be under 112 pounds of lean body mass. Okay, so that's what determines the number. So if I've got a lady who's doing 130, she's doing 4 and 2 because she's doing 135 grams of protein, then you're over that threshold, and there's a very strong likelihood that you're going to be out of fat burn because of the additional protein. And most people are given that as a remedy of the symptoms that they feel when they don't feel like they're in fat burn, and essentially is actually increasing the odds of them not being in fat burn, right? Now, so what we did was we took a look at your total pounds of lean body mass, and then we determined everything around that. Okay, so I've got you right here. So I'm going to pull this.
That was a little painful because it was down at 92 pounds of lean muscle tissue. But granted, I'm only 5'3.5", but still, that right there shows you, if you're talking gram of protein against pound of lean muscle tissue, I'm at 92 grams of protein for my baseline a day, and the 5-in-1 is about 105 grams of protein, right?
Correct. Yes. So let's expose you completely.
You got it.
Okay. So here we can see, so this information is only going to be as good as your tracking, because right now there's certain things, and if you're synced on here through Apple Health, or if you're synced on here through the fitness side, we'll be able to see steps and everything else. So maybe we should take a look. Yeah, we do.
And,
okay. So,
and by the way, tell everybody, by the way, this is my numbers that he has access to of what I just ate this last week. Those are my real daily intakes. I just haven't plugged in today. So there's my numbers.
Yeah. And Sunday, it looks like you took the day off from tracking, which is totally fine. So, right. Or
missed
maybe
it.
Yep. So here's a straight line across here is telling us what we set up for a calorie goal. And here's showing us, like 1,200 calories. If we're within 100 calories, I'm generally okay with that. I mean, depending on the severity of the goal. Here's our protein. So that straight line is where we want it to be. And there are some days where you're a little higher. I've got no real issues with that because here we're, especially in these beginning stages that we're working together. What's the goal? To feel good.
Is to feel good.
To feel good. There's like, depending on how you got your body fat measured, there could be some wiggle room of how much true skeletal muscle mass you have versus how much fat mass you have. If you do an Omron, it might be 1. If you do an in-body, it might be 1. If you do a caliper test, a DEXA scan. Now, usually in-body, BOD-POD, and DEX scan are going to be the most accurate. Okay, but then we're basing it off of that. Now we're still humans, and we still have individual DNA and individual biochemistry, which means that if you fit this range, like when you get your lab values back, they say, hey, between this range is like normal, right?
Sure.
So you might feel great on 100 calories or 100 grams of protein. You might feel better at 115. You might feel better at 120. But the rule is we want to at least start with 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. And that's where we set the goal. So what I would ask you is that when you're looking at these days, how did I feel on Tuesday? Did I feel better on Tuesday than I did on Wednesday? Or how did I feel on Saturday when I had more protein? Did I feel amazing on this day, or did I feel less than amazing? And now we can start to pinpoint maybe 120 makes you feel better than 95, but we don't know yet, right? So, so we kind of do that self-reflection. We do that like self-ranking, scale 1 through 10. If 10's perfect, how do I feel? And then here's our carbs. So here's your fear factor creeping in a little bit of keeping your carbs super low.
Well, you know what's funny is I wasn't even looking at this. I was looking at the calories and just kind of, and by the way, today's Tuesday. On Sunday, I started adding the day ahead. So I haven't even logged anything today. Isn't that funny? So I'll go play the numbers. But see, really what's interesting is if you look at Tuesday, which was really yesterday, look at the carb value. Yesterday, I had a really busy day. So guess what I did? I just kept shoving fuelings in my mouth. I probably had, 7 fuelings, which is where the carbs jumped up. But you know what? You should really quick go back up to the protein for just a second. Where was my protein on yesterday too? So isn't that interesting? So Tuesday's protein, go back over to the right one more. It was 117. And then if you scroll down to the carbs was 115. That's fuelings. Being all balanced. I was just busy and I was like, I'm like, family, go eat crap tonight. I don't have time. So I just kept shoving fuelings in my mouth. And so that shows that kind of carb protein.
But here's the thing, within 98 calories, not a big deal. I mean, it's relatively speaking, that's really, really good. And if you felt amazing, again, that's the goal. Like, and here's your fat grams, 38, which usually we see, usually it's between 25 and 30 is what you see on a 5 and 1, but we're not calling it a 5 and 1. This is not 5 and 1 is 5 fuelings and your lean and green. This is adjusting to your personal body. Okay.
And you know what's funny is see Friday right there. You want to know why that was so high?
Yes,
Texas Roadhouse, which was just the steak, and it was just the salad dressing. And earlier in the day, I had a handful of almonds. Just those 3 factors jumped that fat that much higher.
Yep. And here's the macro distribution. It just kind of shows just what the overall macros were. So really you're kind of like that at that 30, 33, 37, right? So your 40% in this case is, almost 40% protein. This is closer to what's called an isocaloric plan, which means that like, it's a very popular plan. It's very successful for a lot of people. It's 33% of everything. So a lot of times you'll hear 30, 40, 30, and you can decide where that 40 goes. Some people like 40 from protein. A heavily muscled person, if they're doing 1 gram per pound of lean body mass of protein, will probably end up at 40% in protein. If their calories are low. If you're like specifically working on a ketogenic plan, then 40% will probably come from fat. If you are an athlete, and you're focused on carbohydrates, you'll probably be 40% carbohydrates. And this all changes with the amount of calories too. Like the lower the calories and the more satiety that we need, or the more, slowing down digestive system and hunger and everything else, then you'll see more coming from fat and protein. But when you're taking in, let's say, like, so for our high school athletes, if they're trying to get 4,000 calories in, but they're full all the time because they just can't eat that much healthy food and stay hungry, then we're going to jack carbohydrates up to about 60%. Most athletes, most collegiate athletes, pro athletes are going to be 60 to 65% carbohydrates. So it's not a myth. But my goodness, guys, they're pro athletes and they're working out and they're exercising. You know what I mean? So it's like 60%. When you hear 60% carbs, that's great, but that doesn't mean 60% carbs and you're surfing the couch all day.
Right.
That's the difference. And then if we go calories in, calories out, this is a fun one. Because your tracking device is probably not set up on this.
It might not be. Yeah. Let's see. So interesting. Let's see. It might not be connected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting your steps, but again, it's like, so what we'd see with that, which is really it's a fun graph because it helps people really see, like, if you're burning on a steady basis, 1,036, here's 1,144, here's 978, and then your calories, here's your calories burned, and here's calories consumed, and you kind of just see how that all lays out. But this is not accurate because this is just going off your steps. So there's something we can still sync with that to dial that in. But when you see this, especially for the people that we're getting ready for physique contests and bikini and bodybuilding, this is a really cool graph to see because you can really follow the trajectory of calories in, calories out. And what generally happens, especially closer to somebody getting super, super lean, is their calories burn continues to gradually climb and their calories eaten gradually decreases because we're expanding that gap because we're getting down to 12% body fat or 9% body fat for ladies, and guys like 3 to 4%. So you really see that those numbers play out in a way that just visually makes sense. And some people need to see that.
Right. So good. So overall, what would you say, because this is obviously week 1, and as a side note, I did end up losing 6 pounds with the exercise, which I think I did exercise 4 of the 7 days, if I remember correctly. And I was drinking the BCAAs every day that you suggested. And so ultimately, what would you say about, why you didn't bring me down to the 800 calories of a 5-in-1 number? Like, that's what most people do, is when they want to tighten back down, they go right back to the 5-in-1. I would just like you to wrap up with why that's not really the right answer when you're truly wanting to go for optimal health, to just crunch back down to the 5-in-1.
Well, I think just what's really obvious, I think, would be is, had we done that, I don't think you would have worked out 4 days that week.
Right.
I think you would have found yourself, I mean, and not because, like, again, you would have had to have a dying desire to go through essentially the suffering of working out on low calorie nutrition. And
Right.
It's great when you have a lot of stored body fat. I mean, it's like, I actually do enjoy like working out fasted. I enjoy working out, like, your body becomes really efficient, but when you're not used to it, it's misery for some people.
Right.
And what probably would have happened was you would have second guessed if you should be working out as hard as you were working out. You would have essentially burned fewer calories anyway, and you would have just kind of like stalled out in a sense.
Got it.
I always say, like, if I can give you 300 more calories, but you burn 500 more calories, we still have a 200 calorie gain, or net
Right.
loss, I guess, because however you want to look at it, but it's a 200 calorie difference. And that's an improvement. That's going to cause change in the body. So that's how we have to look at that. And where was I going to go with that was the idea that you just would not have felt probably as spunky as you did. Right. But now the other issue is this. Based on what I saw on your graph, and this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, because now I can see this is like, well, you were still a little bit under in carbs, your calories were on, but this tells me that there's probably room for you to follow maybe a 1,300 calorie plan and bring your body fat or your calorie burn deficit a little bit smaller. Okay. Because there's no reason for you to lose 6 pounds a week. Now, if it was like whatever's happening through whatever process, right? Like, fantastic, we'll take it. But now we need this second week to really see where the
What it
variable
does.
starts to settle. Because if you lose another 6 pounds, well, that tells me that our
Oh.
calories are still way too low.
Right. It will be fascinating to report back in on week 2, because normally on a second week, I lose 1.5 pounds. So it'll be interesting, but I've never added exercise and those extra calories. So it'll be fun to see what my body really does. And I really need to watch all the numbers instead of just the calories this week.
Yeah, and I think again, it's like this happens like, okay, so back in the old days when there was not a whole lot of apps or any kind of computer tracking or anything like that, dietitians would say if you track manually your food in a notepad, immediately you consume 15% fewer calories. By just, you think you eat it, you write it down. It's just there's an accountability factor. That's just an awareness. Now with the apps, if you literally commit to never eating anything that you don't track, like I'm not saying don't ever screw up. Like I wasn't down in Dallas, Texas. I had a Wagyu bacon cheeseburger that just the patty by itself was 800 calories. Okay. Woo! I fit it into I had it fit into my 2,400 calorie plan. It wasn't like I completely no issues, but and I had that 2 nights in a row, just so you know. But the point is that that's the level of freedom that you can have, because I knew what I was getting into. I could track it. I knew what it was. It's like, it wasn't like, oh, I can't eat that. That's a bad food. It's like, nope, here's essentially my calorie bank account. Here's what I have available to me. Had I decided like, it's okay if I gain 1/4 pound of fat during this holiday or whatever, like weekend or whatever, but it's not necessarily. But if I decided that it was, I would say, sure, you know what? Maybe a glass of wine or a microbrew on top of it. Like, let's add another 300 calories. Why not? Right. So, but you get to make that decision. You understand. So I tell people, even on days where you you feel like what you're eating is horrible, track it. Because, it's like, you can't just keep your bank account by only keeping track of like food and groceries for your family, but not the eyelashes and the fingernails and all the other stuff and the hair and all this stuff. Unless you're keeping that secret account from your husband, like, you can't do that. You have to put it all in. You can't just track the good stuff and leave the bad stuff off because you don't want to feel bad about it. It's like, if you take out the emotion and just go scientific on it, it's like, it doesn't matter to me if you have 110 calorie fueling or you have 110 calories of M&Ms. Now, one is more nutritious, one has more fiber, one has 25% of the or 20% of the daily values of vitamins and minerals in it, and one has just sugar.
Right.
At the end of the day, the calories are the calories, track it. So so that you can't say, I have no, you made some corrections. Because whether it's like a handful of additional cashews or granola or whatever wherever you thought your balancing point was it was different than what it was in reality.
Correct. I was just off base. And like I say, it's so funny because I was like, how in the heck am I actually, because I hadn't gone on the scale. And then I was like, wait a minute though, I really wasn't tracking. So it wasn't like I was eating cupcakes and all this crap. It was just those extra calories I wasn't tracking added up over every single day. And 1 pound a week is not that fast of weight gain, but it can happen over time really fast. So that's where I'm just like, I kind of feel like when someone's like, oh my gosh, you gained 9 pounds. I'm like, no, I learned that I wasn't tracking because I wasn't eating off the rails. Because that's one of the other topics that people talk about is like, once they get to their goal weight, they can eat whatever they want. I'm like, yeah, but it still comes down to calories in, calories out. I don't care who you are. If you are just throwing caution to the wind, I don't care how you lost the weight, you're going to gain it back.
Yeah. Well, guess what? When you have a 1,600 calorie Wagyu bacon cheeseburger combination, you don't eat every 3 hours 6 times a day.
No.
You know what? I kept my fuelings light in the morning. And I usually intermittent fast, so I was light throughout the day, which isn't that's not that I choose to do that. That's actually feels good for me. So it's not like I'm doing it as a restriction thing. But and then I did fuelings, and then I had all of those calories left for that evening meal. And there's nothing wrong with that. Scientifically, there's nothing wrong with that. There's habit and emotional and best practices to help you stay in control of your appetite. That's the reason why we eat frequently throughout the day. But scientifically, you could be, if you've heard of eat 1 meal a day, like EMODs just eat 1 meal a day. Intermittent fasters, a lot of the same type of thing. So calories in, calories out at the end of the day. And that's what it comes down to. So, you know, there we go.
There we go. So this will be good. So I just thought, I know we kind of, this is a long video, but I just wanted to bring people along for phase 2 of the journey, because I brought people along for phase 1. And so I hope nobody watches this video and goes, oh my gosh, she's having to lose weight again, lose 9 pounds. That's not what this is about. This is about learning truly what my caloric intake is, also how I feel on the different macros, and also building back up muscle mass that just slowly over time, because I'm over 40, I haven't worked out, you know, what that gets to look like. Because again, if I don't build up that muscle mass over the next 6 months or what have you, my daily caloric intake will just be lower because I don't have enough muscle mass, right?
Yep.
So it'll be fun to watch what happens next week with the scale. Obviously, I'm going to not just watch my calories, but watch those macros to see, and then really also probably start to add journaling how I feel on the different days when I watch the numbers go a little different, and also how I feel after those workouts. But like I say, you know, those HOH workouts that are in the book that he has an app that I was following, my kids were dying laughing at how I sounded in the other room. They're going, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing lunges. Do you have weights? No. Well, why are you sounding like that? Because I'm weak, right? Because I am. And that's the thing. And then I love that you have in your app that at the end of the workout, you have to say how hard it was. And I kept thinking, am I putting it all the way to the far red? Like so dang freaking hard. I want to die. Over 15 minutes of lunges, but it's a starting point to build that muscle. And this is what phase 2 is about, is really longevity. And that's why the Habits of Health book has all of this as well. So Casey, I'll put your info in the about section in the book, so that in the video, so that people know how to contact you if they're getting to that phase 2 and really would like somebody that, I hate to say it, there's a lot of personal trainers out there that really don't know nutrition. They had to pass a one little category on that test. And so if they spent all this time and energy in the Optavia weight loss phase, this is phase 2. Talk to somebody that understands what you're trying to do. And Casey will partner with your coach. I'm still buying my fuelings from my coach. I'm paying Casey to work with me on the macro and the exercise piece.
Yeah, let me touch on that for a minute, because it's one of those things where you know, the empathy piece is such a huge thing, because, you know, I grew up in fitness. I was working out at a very young age. I got extremely interested in nutrition as a natural bodybuilder going through college. I changed my major from nursing to dietetics because I was so interested in just improving my body through food, right? The issue is that many of us, if we live this lifestyle, if we lived a 4-sport athlete, a collegiate athlete, a pro athlete, and we just always have worked out, and then and you're 21 years old and you have somebody come in who's 40 years old with 3 kids, a single mom, 4 jobs, I mean, all the stuff. And you're like going, here's how you do this. Okay. Somebody who's never been overweight, who hasn't felt what it feels like, who doesn't know the heaviness, the burden of it all. Right. And they're saying here, oh, you just do this. Right. So my thing is nothing against age. It's just about wisdom, and just, you know, like you can be an old soul and you can understand this stuff had you lived through it. And luckily, the best thing that ever happened to me was I gained 45 pounds going through kind of a life crisis, you know, during the 2006, 2007 financial crisis, right?
Right.
So decided to, you know, eat and drink my way to 45 pounds heavier than I am now. And then, you know, discovered you know, like everything that I already knew was just confirmed in, you know, the life book and Habits of Health again. So, I mean, because that's who I was a, you know, national competitive bodybuilder, all the things. So, but what that taught me was that it doesn't matter how much you know, if number one, if you don't put it into play, and number two is if you emotionally and psychologically can't deal with your stuff. So that's where you need assistance. You got to sometimes pull out the emotional side of it. You got to get into the science side of it, so that you're not dealing with the emotions, but you're just dealing with hard facts. Because it'd be easy for me to say, oh, Gwen, you're sore. Like, maybe you should just take the rest of the year off. You're sore. Like, right. It's like, no, it's like, here's why you're sore. Here's how we can improve the soreness. Here, let's get some rest and recovery. Let's make sure that you're sleeping. Let's all this stuff. Let's fix it and let's get back in the game. Right. Yeah. And that's really what we have to take a look at. So the empathy thing is really important. So where I came from was, how can we make sure, because I'm a realist here. I'm a realist, and I know that You're going to walk in, there's how people have been trained in lean body mass, identification is that if they see a drop of lean body mass, they're going to want to start to overfeed you. It's a false flag in almost every measurement test that you can take, but you can't, unless you've worked with hundreds of thousands of people in a way that you can see it. You can see the algorithm. I literally see the matrix. I know what's going on, and I know what's going on through our program, because I've seen it play out hundreds and hundreds of times with other people. And you can literally, it's a matrix. It's not complicated once you see it, right? But you go into an average trainer who hasn't dealt with some of this stuff. They don't know what it feels like. They don't know what all of the stuff. And then they're going to go with the classic kind of traditional, doctor generic response, which is like, oh, you should eat better and exercise better.
Right.
Okay, but how? Tell me how. Right. So the idea is that my goal was always, how do you offer the best information for people who understand this program? And guess what? Yes, an 800 to 1,000 calorie diet plan will help people lose weight no matter what. There's no doubt about it. So whether it's whole food, whether it's our fuelings, which is the best and easiest way to do it, but it will happen whether you do intermittent fasting or not. I intermittent fast, but it's not a miracle. I'll be the first one to tell you that it has no significant difference in long-term weight loss if all things are equal in calories and exercise. It's just a practice that people do, and some people feel better doing it. So I'm not going to sugarcoat any of the things. All things will work if you know how to work those systems.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that's kind of the thing, is there's no magic. There's just numbers. And that's why I knew coming to you, it's, when people are like, well, don't you struggle on what you're eating? I'm like, well, no, I'm looking at numbers and I know what I need to eat. And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, because I spent a whole year working on the emotional part with the Habits of Health book. I always talk about chasing cupcakes and the Beck diet solution and never binge again. Like, I had to rewire this. Now phase 2 is just, it's a target. And now I just know, okay, readjust. It's just numbers. So it was nice because when I was like, grab something to make the max, get my numbers in there. Of course, my brain went, go grab another handful of that, the almonds. And then I was like, I'm hitting numbers. Like it was just a numbers thing. It was able to get rid of that emotional stuff.
Well, guess what? You could have done it. And then you just had to pull something out later on in the day.
Right.
And you do that a couple of times and you teach yourself really fast. Like, do I want to eat all my carbs before noon, or do I want to have some carbs for dinner?
Exactly.
And so you have all these perfectly balanced meals and you're like going, I just fixed it. Just
right. Yep. And so that's what I love, is I'm just looking at numbers, and it doesn't matter how, like you say, if I want M&Ms, I just get to build it in correctly. And if I want to have a day like the other day where I just ate fuelings all day just to make my life happen, I'm just shooting for numbers. Right. So everybody, make sure you're subscribing to this. Casey's information will be below. If you're getting to this phase of your journey where you would really like somebody to look at your real body composition and your exercise and your caloric intake and even what those macros are, this is the guy that I trust, because this is phase 2 and this is what my next part of my journey is. So we'll do a short little clip each week to just keep you updated, and comment below any questions, and Casey will follow it on YouTube and all of that, and I'll follow as well. So thanks everybody for staying. Bye guys.